Previously on Aaron Turner's Game Reviews. This is nice. I finally got my review of Mario Kart Super Circuit out of the way, so I can just sit back and relax. Not so fast! Who are you? The name's Mitchell Donner, and I've been a longtime fan of your game reviews for a while now, but it appears lately you've been making a few mistakes. I'm gonna put an end to this madness. Do you realize how ridiculous this is? You're kidnapping me because you don't like my opinions on video games. You're insane. Alright, time to web you up. Whoa, wait, hold on. I got a better idea. Oh, come on, this is bullshit. I'd rather be in jail. Look, I've lost my powers. Well, I mean, that's okay. That's happened before, right? It's not really about that. That guy who I stopped from breaking into your house, he got away because I tried to use my powers and couldn't. I'm afraid. Who knows what he could be doing right now? Huh? Why is Knuckles calling you? He offered to get in contact with the news for me about maybe doing a segment on my reviews to promote them. That's probably him with the good news. Knuckles, what the hell did you do to make the cops come? You told them about Mitchell? It was an accident. Look, Aaron, I'm sorry, but me, Sonic, and Tails are getting the fuck out of Dodge. Oh, we have just received word that the police have found no evidence of Mitchell Donner being in the house. Oh, dear God. Look, Aaron, it's not right what you did to Mitchell. I'm actually kind of glad he escaped now. At least he's still alive. Spider-Man, you forget. You were the one that helped me put him in the cage. You're guilty of this too. I thought you were supposed to be a hero. Alright, it's been long enough. Spider-Man is probably cooled down by now. I should give him a call. Look, Aaron, I'm sorry, but I can't join you anymore. I've been thinking a lot lately, and I don't like what I'm thinking about. You and Mitchell are both criminals, and I helped both of you. You were right. I'm supposed to be the hero, but look what I've done. I need to take some time to reevaluate myself. Oh, hey, Aaron. Just wondering if you've heard anything about Mitchell. I don't really care myself, but Tails wanted me to ask. Oh, no, not really. I know as much as you do, I guess. I mean, who knows what that guy could be doing right now. So yeah, I don't plan on reviewing that game, but I just thought I'd mention it. What the hell? Ah, shit, the power must have went out. Oh my god, Mitchell, you did this? Yes, I did. It was a ruse to get you to come down here. Alright, Mitchell, that's it. I've had enough of this nonsense. You and me right now. Let's go. Oh, I'd love to see that. Alright, let's go. Hey, what are you doing? I'm calling the police. After all, you're still wanted. Alright, you just sit tight, the police are on their way, and then this whole kidnapping thing will be behind both of us. Hey everyone, my name is Aaron Turner, and I'm in a good mood today because finally I was able to put all of this Mitchell Donner kidnapping stuff behind me. Huh? What's this? We now have more news regarding not-so-notorious criminal Mitchell Donner. It's now been confirmed that Mitchell Donner was given a sentence of 5 years in prison. This just keeps getting better and better. What to watch? Sonic Blast Game Review by Aaron Turner. Alright, let's see. Wow, that was actually pretty good. Maybe I should check out some of his other game reviews. I'm gonna give Sonic Drift 2 a 2.5 out of 10. Huh, funny. I actually agree with most of his opinions. If only I could make game reviews like him. Yo, did you guys hear that Mitchell was given a 5-year prison sentence? Yeah, I feel really bad. Actually, I kind of feel bad too. Mitchell gets thrown in prison, meanwhile Aaron gets away scot-free. It's making me feel guilty. Yeah, me too. What do you think, Sonic? Sonic? Oh, he's not listening. He's sort of getting his, sausage. Okay, I get it. I'm referring to his penis. Yes, I'm aware. Well, what should we do about the Mitchell thing? Well, let's go see Aaron and find out how he's taking it. Who knows? Maybe he feels bad too. This is the best time of my life. Well, there's your answer. Absolutely no remorse. He's a monster. Well, now that we're here, we might as well see what his next game review is. Maybe it's a Sonic game.
Oh, please, that's all you care about. You just like receiving pleasure, whether it's positive reviews of your games or peach on your penis. Hey, who are we mad at here, me or Arron?
Well, I guess I better review Sonic Rush now.
Sonic what now?
Jesus Christ! Sonic, what the hell?
Oh, sorry. It's just that we were here anyway, and I heard you say you were gonna review a Sonic game?
Yeah, I'm gonna review Sonic Rush.
Hey, never mind that for a second. What the fuck's wrong with you, Arron?
What are you talking about?
Oh, come on, man. You know what we're talking about. Mitchell was just given 5 years in prison, and you could care less. Yeah, and how is it fair that you get away with kidnapping when Mitchell doesn't?
Hey, wait a minute. I thought you were all on my side.
Well, we changed our minds.
Well, you guys were all accessories. Technically, you're all just as guilty. How about we make a deal? I don't go to prison, you guys don't go to prison.
Ah, son of a bitch, I suppose. Yeah, I guess that's fair. What about you, Sonic? Look, I don't care. Whatever gets us to the review faster.
Alright, well, sit down and I'll get started. So, let's talk about the Sonic Advance trilogy.
Hey, wait a minute. Why aren't you wearing your glasses?
Why aren't I wearing my Oh, my glasses! Right. Can't believe I forgot. So, now let's talk about the Sonic Advance trilogy.
The Sonic Advance trilogy was basically Sega's answer to the long line of shitty Game Gear Sonic games. I'm not saying every handheld Sonic game before it was bad, but the majority of them were, and they also released constantly. Seriously, you couldn't escape them. It felt like in the 90s there was a Sonic Game Gear title releasing every few months. But finally, after the horrific game that was Sonic Blast, Sega finally stopped releasing Sonic on the Game Gear. It was nearing the end of the 90s and Sega had to move on to something new. However, in 2001, Sega stopped producing game consoles after the failure of their Sega Dreamcast. It was time to license Sonic off to other video game systems. Enter the Game Boy Advance. And not only did we get a new next-gen handheld Sonic game, we got a whole trilogy of next-gen handheld Sonic games. Sonic Advance 1 was a really fun game with multiple playable characters with unique abilities, although it did have many flaws. Sonic Advance 2, while improving on some aspects, in my opinion was worse than the first. And then there was Sonic Advance 3, which introduced character combinations with a shitload of combined abilities. I think Advance 3 is the best, but unfortunately it was still far from perfect, which made me wonder, would we ever see a great handheld Sonic game? One that could compete with the likes of the Genesis titles? Well, in 2004, the GBA's successor, the Nintendo DS, released to an overwhelming success, and not long after, in late 2005, we were given a new Sonic game for the DS. Just as the DS was a successor to the GBA, Sonic Rush was the successor to the Sonic Advance trilogy. Only one question remains. Did Sonic Rush finally give us a great handheld Sonic game? Well, let's find out. The plot starts off pretty normal. The Chaos Emeralds are missing and Sonic goes after Eggman with the help of Tails. However, after beating Eggman, he encounters a new character by the name of Blaze the Cat, who is searching for Soul Emeralds. Sonic, of course, being confused by this, wonders what's going on, and thanks to Tails, they find out that Blaze is actually from a different dimension, and because of what Eggman did, she has been transported into Sonic's universe. Sonic also finds out that the Eggman that he's been fighting this whole time is actually Eggman Nega, the Eggman of Blaze's universe. Yeah, take that, Marvel. Sonic was doing multiverse stuff long before it became cool. Anyway, Sonic and Blaze each collect their respective emeralds and go on their own adventures to stop both Eggmans. Throughout the game, Blaze constantly reaffirms that she doesn't want anyone's help, she wants to do everything by herself. Near the end of the game, Blaze and Sonic get into a scrap before Sonic convinces her to help him stop both Eggmans. Blaze ends up learning that it's okay to get help from others. The story is simple, but I do think Blaze is a nice new addition to the Sonic franchise. She's basically the opposite version of Sonic. She collects Soul Emeralds instead of Chaos Emeralds, and fights Eggman Nega instead of Eggman. Alright, let's get into the gameplay. Now in Sonic Rush, Sonic is the only playable character. Yes, you do play as Blaze as well, but I'll get to that later. Sonic can do all his usual attacks and spin dash, but honestly, you'll probably never use the spin dash in this game, and that's due to the main gameplay mechanic, boosting. Sonic, when boosting, flies through the zone and can smash through enemies, walls, and can even move certain platforms. Now you can't just boost through everything the whole time. You have a boost meter that you have to fill up by either defeating enemies or by doing tricks while in the air. Boosting is a wonderful addition to the gameplay. It's so fun and satisfying to blast through enemies and go through loops super fast. It's also really fun to see how fast you can go through an act with this mechanic. Sonic Rush is on the DS, so of course that means 2 screens. However, unlike a lot of other DS games where the main game plays on the top screen, Sonic Rush combines both the top and bottom screen to be viewed together. Sonic will boost up to the top screen when reaching higher platforms, or drop down to the bottom screen when on lower platforms. It's really cool. So the game has 7 zones, with the first being Leaf Storm. Now some of you might think I'm going to complain because it's another Green Hill zone, but honestly, besides being a grassy plains, Leaf Storm feels very different compared to some of the other Green Hill copies in the past, so I'm actually fine with this and I enjoy the zone a lot. I also think the name of the zone is clever considering that you boost your way through. Next is Water Palace, and I really like it. It doesn't feel like any of the previous water zones in the past. The boost meter really helps with that. It adds so much more to the zones. Mirage Road is next, and it's not as good as Leaf Storm or Water Palace, mainly because it has a couple parts that kill the fast pace of the gameplay. You'll sometimes enter these rooms that require you to destroy a bunch of badniks, and it's not only Mirage Road, these are also in Huge Crisis and Deadline. I certainly don't hate these sections, and they don't take that long, but it still kinda kills the pacing. Another part of Mirage Road I think kills the pacing are these slide-like things that you go on to reach another level. They just last a bit too long, and one of them even lasts about 20 seconds. It's really unnecessary, and you can't even control Sonic in these slides, so what's the point? Now, I don't hate Mirage Road, it's fun to go through, and I really like these moving platforms that you go on near the end of each act. In Act 1, you go on this raft thing and fight badniks while also trying to avoid falling boulders. I especially like Act 2 because the raft is much bigger, and you can move in 4 directions instead of the normal 2 directions, giving it a sort of 3D feel. I know I might sound like a hypocrite for criticizing the slow pace of destroying badniks, only to praise the raft sections, which are basically the same thing and last even longer, but I actually really enjoy the raft sections, and Mirage Road is the only zone with this type of gameplay, which makes it feel unique. The 4th zone is Night Carnival, and once again you might be expecting me to complain and say it's just like Casino Night from Sonic 2, or Carnival Night from Sonic 3, or Casino Paradise from Sonic Advance. Ugh, good god, these zone names. Seriously, they gotta come up with better names for zones because it's getting really fucking confusing, even for someone like me. Anyway, as I was saying, Night Carnival Zone, you know, the one from Sonic Rush, is unlike any of the zones that came before. That's one thing I do have to praise about 2D Sonic. Even though they use a lot of casino/carnival zones, they still manage to make them feel unique, unlike a lot of the Green Hill Zone copies. It has these buttons you hit to make platforms appear, and it just has a lot of these fun mechanics throughout. I actually found myself struggling with this zone because I wasn't reaching the higher platforms until I realized that Sonic has a move in this game where he can perform a mini hop in the air. It's pretty much the hop he has in Advance 2, which is one of the only abilities in that game that I found useful, so I'm glad it's in this game. Next is Huge Crisis, and this might be the hardest zone in the game, mainly due to the fact that there's quite a few bottomless pits and lots of things that can crush you. But it's not as bad as long as you take your time. I guess you shouldn't be rushing through this zone. Your jokes are so lame. Anyway, the next zone is Altitude Limit and is really awesome. It's got a few tricky obstacles like when you have to get past a bunch of badniks on a flying saucer, but it's a blast to play. There's so many rails to grind on, there's parachutes you use, and unlike Mirage Road, it doesn't kill the pacing. The 7th zone is Deadline, so stop me if you've heard this one before. It's the final zone in the game, it has an anti-gravity gimmick, and it takes place in space. I mean, sweet Jesus, I thought they would have learned their lesson by now with the Sonic Advance games constantly using this gimmick, but Sonic Rush is still doing this shit. It's not even that different either. It has some rockets that you have to steer in the right direction in order to get to certain platforms, but that's pretty much it. It's probably my least favorite zone in the game, however, I do still enjoy playing it, so that should tell you something about the quality of the zones in this game. Now it's time to go over the boss fights. Sonic Rush has 2 main acts per zone and then a boss act. Unlike the main acts, the boss fight is only on the top screen. The bottom screen has Tails cheering you on, and you have a counter showing how many hits you have left, which is a nice help. Leaf Storm's boss is the Egg Hammer Mega. Eggman Nega will try to crush you with the hammer and will send the hammer rolling towards you. It's an original boss, but at the same time, pretty lame. Water Palace's boss is the Egg Turtle. He'll try to crush you and also send his head towards you. The attacks are harder to avoid than the previous boss, and it's a little better, but still not great. However, the following bosses are mostly really good. Mirage Road has a pretty good boss. The Egg Scarab rolls a spiky ball at you, and you have to wait until the spikes retract to hit it back to the backside of the Scarab. Sometimes he'll jump to avoid it, and he'll fly in the air and try to hit you with the balls. It's a pretty creative boss. I also really like Night Carnival's boss, the Egg Libra. As one comes down, you have a chance to hit it. You can also use this Badnik to bounce up and hit it. It's probably the most fun boss in the game. Huge Crisis has the Egg Hammer Fortress, and you guessed it, it's pretty much exactly the same as the first boss, except instead of rolling the hammer at you, Eggman Nega shoots missiles at you, but I find that they're pretty easy to avoid. Altitude Limit has a pretty good boss with the Egg Eagle, which is an eagle/plane that Eggman Nega uses to try and crush you and shoot at you. This is one of the hardest bosses for a couple of reasons. While it's easy to avoid getting crushed, I found the shooting harder to avoid than the missiles, and sometimes Eggman Nega tries to blow you off the platform, and you have to mash the A and B button to stay on. It's not that hard, but it's just annoying. I hate when you're required to mash certain buttons really fast. And then you have Deadline's boss, which is a fight against Blaze. You'd think it would be hard, but it's extremely easy. I don't think I've ever died. Blaze uses fire attacks as she tries to jump into you, hit you with fire, and dash towards you. All of these attacks are pretty easy to avoid. Once Blaze has one hit left, they have a conversation where Sonic tries to tell her that she doesn't have to do this anymore, but she doesn't listen. Suddenly they both dash towards each other, and this is when you have to mash the A and B button. But this time it goes on for a while. I'm pretty sure it goes on for almost 20 seconds. It's ridiculous. But it's not over yet, because once you complete Deadline, you have one last boss fight with Eggman Nega in the F Zone. What does it stand for? Fuck, why do we keep doing this bullshit zone? I mean, seriously, how many times can they do the same thing over and over again? The game tries to make you think the 7th zone is the last zone, but then suddenly another zone appears where you have another boss fight. Although, to the game's credit, it does make sense because it would be weird if Blaze was the final boss. It wouldn't really fit right, and it was also way too easy. Anyway, you fight Eggman Nega in his Egg King, a giant contraption with huge arms that he tries to crush you with. When he comes down to crush you, you have to hit the tips of the arm, which causes him to move to the side, where he hammers down on the platform, causing shockwaves. After avoiding this, you hit the tip again, which causes his arm to get stuck, at which point you have to run up his arm to hit his shell, and repeat the process 7 times. He'll also try to wiggle you off his arm, in which case you hold down on the D-pad to stay on. He also has these electric barriers, which is actually the hardest part of the fight in my opinion, because overall I was surprised by how easy this was. Once he gets down to 1 hit left, he tries to slam into the platform repeatedly. You don't actually have anything to worry about here because you can't die. Once he gets stuck, you hit his shell to end the fight. So overall, what do I think about the bosses? Well, I really like most of them. They may be really easy, but a lot of them have some creative ideas. They're not as good as the bosses in Sonic Advance 3, but I like them for the same reasons. Oh, but folks, that's not all. I'm sure you all saw this coming, but there's a secret final boss and ending upon collecting the Chaos Emeralds. However, once again, I have to give the game credit here. Getting the Chaos Emeralds is actually really easy. It's not needlessly complicated like the Advance trilogy. There's no hidden springs or rings or chows to find. You just need to find a speed generator in each zone and use your boost on it. That's it. You don't need to find 10 of them, you just need to find one, and boosting on it will take you straight to the special stage. The special stages are similar to Sonic 2's special stages. It's the half pipe again, and you need to collect a certain amount of rings. You have to control Sonic with the stylus, and it actually controls very well. It's extremely precise, and I really appreciate that. Also, I actually completed all of the special stages, making this the first handheld Sonic game where I collected all the Chaos Emeralds. However, before I talk about the final boss, there's something else the game requires you to do before unlocking the final boss. You need to do a playthrough of the game as Blaze. Now, you might be wondering why I sound so disappointed. It's because Blaze's playthrough is exactly the same as Sonic's playthrough. Blaze plays exactly the same as Sonic, goes through the exact same zones, and fights the exact same bosses. The only minor difference is that Blaze goes through the zones in a different order than Sonic. She starts in Night Carnival, then Leaf Storm, Mirage Road, Water Palace, Altitude Limit, Huge Crisis, and then Deadline, and of course F Zone. Another difference is that Blaze doesn't have special stages. Instead, she gets her Soul Emeralds by just going through the bosses. So why does Sonic go through special stages but Blaze doesn't? In that case, I would have cut out the special stages entirely. It would make the game feel more fresh instead of repeating the same half-pipe from Sonic 2. The last difference with Blaze's playthrough is the boss in Deadline. Since you're playing as Blaze, you fight Sonic. It's a tiny bit different, and I say tiny bit because Sonic doesn't have fire attacks, so instead he tries to suck you into his tornado. However, the rest of his attacks are exactly the same as Blaze's attacks. And now it's time to ask the question that I've been leading to. What the fuck is the point of Blaze's playthrough? It's not like there's a difficulty spike. The difficulty is the same. As a matter of fact, it's technically easier since there's no special stages. I cannot understand why this wasn't cut from the game. Now in Sonic Heroes, you had to do 4 playthroughs of the game in order to unlock the last story. And even though I still don't think it's worth it, at the very least, they did switch things up for each playthrough. Team Sonic was normal mode, Team Dark was hard mode, Team Rose was easy mode, and Team Chaotix was mission mode. Blaze's playthrough doesn't switch anything up. Playing the zones in a different order doesn't count as switching things up. Replacing Blaze's fire attack with Sonic's tornado attack doesn't count as switching things up. Not having Blaze do special stages doesn't count as switching things up. There was no reason for this playthrough. Now before you defend it by saying, well, the playthrough is to show Blaze's side of the story and her relationship with Cream. You see, Blaze encounters Cream the Rabbit in her story. Cream wants to be her friend and help her, but of course Blaze wants no part of it. Eventually, Blaze starts to care about Cream and accepts their friendship. It's a simple, sweet story. Cream even replaces Tails on the bottom screen during the bosses. Also, Blaze fights Eggman instead of Eggman Nega. But that doesn't change the way I feel about her playthrough. They could have still showed this story and relationship without giving Blaze her own playthrough. Here's an idea. Why not have Sonic and Blaze share the same playthrough? You could have the player take turns throughout the game. You could start Leaf Storm with Sonic, then go to Water Palace as Blaze, then back to Sonic in Mirage Road, then Blaze in Night Carnival, Sonic in Huge Crisis, Blaze in Altitude Limit, and to make things even for Deadline, you could play as Sonic in Act 1 and Blaze for Act 2. And since the boss for Deadline has the same outcome either way, give the player an option to either fight Blaze as Sonic or fight Sonic as Blaze. Then for F-Zone, you could take turns throughout the fight as Sonic and Blaze together. This would also make sense because the actual final boss, which I'll talk about in a second, has you switching between Sonic and Blaze. So why couldn't they just do that from the beginning? I also think this would have made for a more effective story. You could get both Sonic and Blaze's side of the story at the same time without having to do 2 separate playthroughs. I know I'm going surprisingly in depth, but I really wanted to get my point across that I think the problem with Blaze's playthrough could have easily been fixed if they went with this idea instead. Anyway, once you collect the Chaos Emeralds with Sonic and do an entire playthrough with Blaze, you unlock the Extra mode. Eggman and Eggman Nega team up for one final fight against Sonic and Blaze. This final fight is called Exception. Sonic and Blaze use the power of the Chaos and Soul Emeralds to become Super Sonic and Burning Blaze. Both Eggmans use the Egg Salamander. You switch back and forth between Sonic and Blaze. As Super Sonic, you have to deflect Eggman's attacks back at his shell. It's actually pretty difficult because you have to hit them at the right angle while also timing it right to hit his shell. As Burning Blaze, you just have to charge up a fireball and time it to hit Eggman Nega's shell. It's much easier with Blaze, but overall it's still easily the hardest boss in the game. Most of the reason why it's so hard is due to the fact that you have to constantly collect more rings during the fight, since Super Sonic's ring count is of course always draining. The boss fight goes on for 5 phases, and then the game ends as Sonic and Blaze bid their farewell. Also, the music that plays here is so good. And that's Sonic Rush. Overall, I'm very happy with it. It improves upon a lot of the problems I had with the Advanced Trilogy. There's no useless abilities, the zones could be a bit more original, but they're all such a blast to play because of the gameplay style with boosting. It makes the zones so fun to replay and try to get a higher rank. Most of the bosses are really great, the Chaos Emeralds aren't a pain in the ass to collect, the stylus control in the special stages are very smooth, and the music is fucking amazing. However, Sonic Rush is unfortunately not a perfect game. The slides in Mirage Road should have been cut, the rooms that require you to stop and defeat badniks kinda kill the pace, the button mashing is annoying, the final zone again reuses the anti-gravity and space gimmick, and I'm really not a fan of the game ending with yet another cliché supersonic final boss. That's the one thing that they unfortunately did carry over from the Advanced Trilogy. But by far the biggest problem with Sonic Rush is Blaze's playthrough. But you know what? Despite all of my negatives, I still found myself really loving this game. The positives are so fucking good that they overshadow the negatives. Even though I do acknowledge the negatives, they honestly don't bother me all that much. Take Blaze's playthrough, for example. Do I think it's unnecessary and should have been cut? Absolutely. However, did I gladly play through the game a second time? Absolutely. Even though I think it's dumb, I will still go through Blaze's playthrough with a smile on my face for the simple reason that I have so much fun playing it. Sonic Rush is one of those cases similar to Mario Kart DS, where I really wanted to give the game a higher score, but I have to be honest and fair with my criticisms. Therefore, I'm going to give Sonic Rush an 8.5 out of 10.
Sonic Rush may not be a perfect game, but I really enjoyed it, and in my opinion, it's not only better than any of the advanced games, but it's also better than a lot of the mainline Sonic games.
Wait a minute, you never mentioned what I do in the game. I am in the game, right?
Oh, yeah, of course you're in the game, Knuckles.
Well, what do I do then?
Well, unfortunately, Knuckles, you kinda get shafted in this game. You only show up sometimes to talk to some of the characters, and that's pretty much it.
Aw, man.
Yeah, sorry about that.
What game are you reviewing next?
That's a good question. Oh, I know. I'll review Shadow the Hedgehog.
Oh, come on, why that game?
What does it matter? I review video games. Shadow the Hedgehog is a video game.
Oh, whatever. We'll be back for it anyway. Come on, guys, let's go.
Alright, well, see you guys later. Oh, hey, I just thought I'd let you know that I'm reviewing Shadow the Hedgehog next. You'll be here? Great, that's what I thought. See you soon.
What am I supposed to do without my powers? Oh no, someone's in trouble. There's no one else around. I have to help them. Alright, you're safe now. Everything's gonna be okay. Well, what now? Huh? What the hell? Wait a minute, my spider sense warned me of that car. Which must mean my powers are back. It must have been a reaction to me helping criminals all this time. And now that I've done a good deed, they're finally back. I know what I must do now. It's time for me to do something I should have done a long time ago. I'm gonna take down that son of a bitch Arron Turner.